This is in the 50s when education was a different story. This is my geography teacher, a huge, big Brazilian guy, and he stands there and he roars, he thunders, he scares the hell out of everyone and says, "Kurien, answer the question." And I don't have a clue. The answer is, "Come right up, put your hand out, 6 on the knuckles." And I make the mistake of turning around and saying, "Why do I need to know the bleeding length of the Amazon? I'm not going to swim this silly river." That's it. You get bent over, 6 of the best. And that really was the end of my asking why and the end of my learning. You must remember in those days, they didn't understand that kids could have dyslexia, ADS, learning problems. They thought beating people was the only way to get intelligence into someone's head. Yeah, you guys are fortunate. It doesn't happen to you anymore. And thanks to that, I failed in the 7th, I failed in the 9th, I failed in the 11th. And the only reason they kept me on in school was because I was sports champion at, pretty much everything and captain of half the teams. Finally, scraped over, got through school, get into college. And then I go and duck the first year of college. And I was a poor guy who'd come from a poor background in a very expensive school. And I just couldn't hack the failure anymore. So I did the only thing I knew what to do, which is run away. At 18, I ran away from home. I got a job with a helicopter company which sprayed crops village to village to village, and I spent 3 years living in villages. I came back a few years later, and that's when I realized that my big problem was I wouldn't ask the question why for the simple reason that I was afraid of looking stupid. And I still meet people who do that today. They nod really wisely. Everyone's, pretending they understand. And I did the same thing for years and years. It took me years before I crossed that and broke that fear and said, you need to ask why. And to me, with my background, the most valuable words in education are why and why not. Go back to when you were a kid. This is your natural learning process. "Daddy, Daddy, why do the wheels go round?" And Daddy explains to you, you understand. "Mommy, why is your hair black? Somebody else is blonde, someone is gray." All our learning comes out of this ability to ask why, and someone taught us. And then sometimes we hit this huge big obstacle. And that obstacle is this naturally curious and inquisitive mind. It gets stopped by that one person who comes out and says, "Stop asking why, I'm fed up. Why don't you just do what I say? Don't question me." And that is what starts switching off this curious mind. And once you do that, I think that's what slows down all our abilities. I work with a bunch of kids. Most of the business that I'm in, we have 25-year-olds, 26-year-olds. Bright guys. There's some really bright guys. They do everything they're told, unquestioningly. And I think they're boring. And then you got the know-it-alls. You can't teach them anything. They got egos so big, nothing gets in there. The guys don't grow. They don't learn. But I love the kids who come up to me and say, "Can you explain to me, why are we doing this way?" And I have no choice but to sit down there and explain to him that this is why we're doing it, and this is what we intend achieving out of it, and this is the goal we want to get to. And sometimes he says, "But sir, why can't it be done some other way?" And let me tell you, sometimes I don't really have an answer, because here's this 25-year-old who comes from a different background. He's part of the digital world. He's a completely different environment he's grown up in, and he thinks differently. And just because I've done something for 5 years one way, it doesn't mean I'm right. And I'm learning. So the cross-learning is sitting around with young people who just challenge things, and I hope you guys keep doing that. I spent many, many years being told I'm stupid, being told I'm a failure. And it's not just physical beatings, it's mental humiliation, and this can really break you. And I think what it took really was, I was almost 40 years old when I turned around and said, I'm not going to be frightened to ask why. So I started asking why. Here I was in meetings, and that's when my career changed. Everything started changing, and I realized that intelligent people respected me because I asked why. Right? But I didn't ask why in a manner that irritated. I just lost the embarrassment to be able to say, listen, I saw this amazing presentation in PowerPoint your CEO has made, charts, graphs, pies, strawberries, whatever it is you want. It's all so complex, the arrows flying all over the place. great. Yeah, I got the gist of it. Can you break this down and explain this to me in simple English? Don't feel bad. Talk to me like I'm 12-year-old. Dumb it down, because that's the only way I get it. And they do. And when they do, you actually start seeing where the problem is. And very often, you find a simple solution. Right? Now, besides everything you guys are going to study, and you guys will and do well, if you keep following this, you're going to end up, it's simple questions, simple answers, simple solutions, and there's no stopping you after that. And part of this, I guess I learned to do out of practice. I just stay curious. Some people find me really odd. I'm sitting in a car, I'm driving down, coming all the way out here to Jew. I look to the left, I see Kalpana, and I say, what on earth is that store all about? And on the right, they say City Bakery, and I know they sell bread. And here, I'm thinking branding and so on and so forth. I'm at a traffic signal, and in my head, I'm trying to work out, is there anything I can do to improve the traffic situation in this city? And that curiosity, if you convert that into observation, and these are the things I learned in my life. It's the school of observation, it's the school of life. If you're out there and you understand why people behave a certain way, sit in a shop and see who buys a certain product and who doesn't, who asks the price, who doesn't. How do rich people use a mobile phone? How do poor people use a mobile phone? And that observation just takes you into understanding things which will help you later in life, in business, in work. And with my learning problems, I don't remember anything. So I just make notes like a schoolboy. And people are embarrassed to do this, They sit in a working environment. People don't like making notes. I'm there writing notes, writing down every single word, because if I don't write it down in 30 seconds, it's gone, it's blank, and it's forgotten. So I live with paper and pen around me. And why are people embarrassed to sort of write things down, And the part of the working world sort of tries to say, hey, you're not smart if you're, noting things down. So this is something that I do. I'll just take you this wonderful Latin word, VIRTU, and it really means a childlike, curious, inquiring mind. This is one of the most precious gifts we have. Don't lose it. All kinds of people will try and put stops to you. I mean, look at the kids who just stop asking and are frightened to ask. So this takes you places, because very often, just because you've been thinking about something, you run into someone in a coffee shop, you run into someone in a flight sitting next to you, and this chance meeting is another guy who's been thinking along the same lines as you, right? Or has been planning to set up a business. The next thing you know is you just might be in business with the guy. He might fund you for your next venture. And when VIRTU and FORTUNA come together, magic. You're probably asking, where did all these whys and why nots take me? 25 years ago, I worked in advertising, and I quit my job, walked out, and then said, why can't you set up an advertising agency for clients who only want fantastic creative? And we built one of the best agencies there was. Ambience went out. It sold to Publicis. It's third or fourth largest in the country today. 20 years ago, I'm sitting with a guy called Subhash Chandra, who's a client of mine. We're watching CNN, coming down, satellite. We'd never seen it before, the Gulf War. Said, why can't we do this in India? What's there to stop us? A year later, we launched ZTV, two of us. 5 years ago, I meet a guy in a bar, crazy guy, American chap. We get pally, we get gassing, we become friends, find out we have something in common and a passion for this country. We end up owning the domain India.com, which has 32 million viewers, and I've got at least half a dozen more stories like this, so I'm not going to tell it. But it's nothing but that add-on self-education of observation, learning, staying curious, constantly 24/7, making your mind tick with all kinds of things. I'm going to leave you with one last thought. The truly educated never graduate, because they're always asking questions. They're always asking why not? I'm 65 years old. I'm still asking questions, I'm still learning, and I'm happy.